My name is Lila, and I'm 30 now. But 10 years ago, I stood in a room full of people who should have been my family, carrying a grief so heavy it felt like it could crush my bones. The lawyer's office smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, the kind that sits too long in a pot, bitter and cold. I sat in a creaky leather chair at the edge of a long mahogany table, my hands folded so tightly in my lap that my knuckles ached. The air was thick, suffocating, and every breath felt like a fight. It was the day they read my mother's will, and I was there, hoping for something, a piece of her, a sign she'd seen me, even at the end. Instead, I got a silence that cut deeper than any knife. Mr. Hargrove, the lawyer, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat, his voice dry as the papers he shuffled. My stepfather, Richard, sat at the head of the table, his new wife Marla beside him, her manicured nails tapping softly on the armrest, a rhythm that grated on my nerves. My half-sister Elise was there too, her eyes flicking between Richard and the lawyer, her lips pressed into a thin line. They were a unit, the three of them, a closed circle I'd never been invited into. I was the outsider, the leftover daughter from Mom's first marriage, the one nobody ever knew what to do with. "Lila," Mr. Hargrove said, his tone gentle but firm, "your mother's will is clear. The estate, her savings, the house, the jewelry, has been divided between Richard, Elise, and Marla." He paused, and the room seemed to tilt, the walls closing in. "I'm sorry, but there's no provision for you. No provision." The words landed like a slap, sharp and stinging, echoing in my head. I looked at Richard, waiting for him to say something, to fix the mistake. He didn't. He just stared at the table, his jaw tight, his fingers drumming a slow beat. Marla's hand rested on his arm, possessive, her lips curling into a faint smile that made my stomach churn. Elise, Elise, wouldn't even meet my eyes, her gaze fixed on her lap, her hands twisting a tissue into knots. The silence was deafening, broken only by the tick of the clock on the wall, each second carving out a piece of me. I don't know how I got through the rest of that meeting. I nodded, I think, and mumbled something about understanding, but inside, I was screaming. My mother, the woman who'd tucked me in with stories of faraway places, who'd laughed with me over burnt cookies in our tiny kitchen, had left me nothing. Not a letter, not a trinket, not even a word. And the people around that table, the ones who called themselves my family, didn't care. I'd spent years trying to be enough, dropping out of college to care for Mom during her cancer treatments, spending nights in the hospital while Richard traveled for work and Elise partied with her friends. I'd held her hand when she took her last breath, whispering that I loved her, my voice breaking as the machines went quiet. And now, this. When I left the office, the summer heat hit me like a wall, thick and suffocating, the asphalt shimmering under the sun. I walked to my car, a beat-up hatchback that rattled when it ran, and sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My chest felt like it was caving in, and I kept replaying the years before. Every sacrifice, every moment I'd tried to prove I belonged. I'd been the one changing Mom's bandages, making her tea, reading her favorite books aloud when she was too weak to hold them. I'd sat by her bed, counting her breaths, willing her to stay just one more day. Richard had been gone, Elise had been indifferent, and Marla had been waiting in the wings, ready to step into Mom's place the moment she was gone. In my glove compartment, I kept a small silver locket, a gift from Mom when I was 12. It was dented, the clasp barely holding, but inside was a tiny photo of us, smiling at a county fair, our faces lit by the glow of a Ferris wheel. I opened it now, tracing her face with my fingertip, the metal warm against my skin. "Why, Mom?" I whispered, my voice breaking, tears burning my eyes. "Why didn't you see me?" The locket was a small, solid thing, in a world that felt like it was crumbling, a tether to the woman who'd once been my everything. That night, alone in my cramped apartment, I couldn't sleep. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, and the streetlights cast shadows through my blinds, dancing across the ceiling. I rummaged through a box of Mom's things I'd kept, old books, a scarf, a pair of earrings, and found something else. A letter, tucked inside a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice, her favorite. It was her handwriting, unmistakable, the loops and curves as familiar as her voice. It was addressed to me. My hands shook as I unfolded it, the paper soft and creased, smelling faintly of her perfume. a scent that hit me like a memory. "Lila," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I need you to know the truth." My heart stopped. The truth. Whatever it was mine now, and it was the only thing I had left. I didn't read it right away. I couldn't. I sat there, the letter in my hands, and felt the weight of 10 years of invisibility pressing down on me. I'd been the daughter who didn't matter, the one they could erase without a second thought. But Mom's words, whatever they were a lifeline, a chance to understand why she'd let me go. I held the letter to my chest, the locket around my neck, and closed my eyes, the ache in my heart both a wound and a promise. The letter sat unopened on my nightstand for days, next to the locket, its presence like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. I don't know why I hesitated. Maybe I was afraid of what it might say, or maybe I wasn't ready to hear Mom's voice again, knowing I'd lose it when the words ran out. My apartment was a mess back then, a one-room shoebox with peeling paint and a faucet that dripped no matter how many times I tightened it. The air smelled of stale coffee and the diner grease that clung to my clothes after double shifts at Marty's, a place where the coffee was always bitter and the regulars tipped in loose change. My life felt like a series of small surrenders, each one chipping away at the girl I used to be, leaving me hollow and tired. Growing up, I'd always been the quiet one, the one who didn't ask for much. Mom was my anchor, the one who saw me when nobody else did. She'd worked late at the library, her hands always smelling of paper and ink, and we'd spend evenings together, chopping vegetables for dinner while she hummed old songs. "You're my heart, Lila," she'd say, brushing my hair back, her touch soft but sure. Those moments were my safe place, a bubble where I was enough. But when she married Richard when I was 10, things changed. He wasn't cruel, not in the obvious ways. He just didn't care. He'd come home from his sales job, pour himself a whiskey and talk over me like I wasn't there. Elise, 4 years younger, was his princess, the daughter he doted on. I'd watch them laugh together, planning trips I was never invited on, and it was like I was outside a window, looking in on a family I didn't belong to. Mom tried to bridge the gap, but she was tired, always stretching herself thin to keep the peace. She'd work late, come home exhausted, and still find time to sit with me, her eyes heavy but warm. But those moments got rarer as her illness took hold. By the time I was 18, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I became her caregiver. I dropped out of college, drove her to chemo, held her hand through the nausea, and read to her when she couldn't sleep. I'd sit by her bed, the hospital room smelling of antiseptic and fear, and tell her about the life I'd have one day. A little house, a garden, a dog. She'd smile, her voice weak, and say, "You'll get there, Lila. You're stronger than you know." Richard was gone most of the time, traveling for work, and Elise was too busy with her teenage life to notice. I didn't mind. Not really. I thought that's what love was, giving everything, expecting nothing. But love like that leaves scars, and mine ran deep. I remembered one night, a few months before Mom died, when I overheard Richard and Marla, his mistress then, his wife now, talking in the kitchen. I'd come downstairs for water, my bare feet cold on the tile, and their voices carried through the dark. "Lila's too serious," Marla said, her tone sharp, like a knife slicing through the air. "She's always hovering, like she's waiting for something." Richard just grunted, his voice low. "She'll figure it out." Figure what out? I wanted to scream. That I wasn't wanted? That I was in the way? I stood there, frozen, my throat tight, and slipped back upstairs, my heart a little harder than before. That moment stayed with me, a splinter I couldn't pull out, festering under my skin. Those memories flooded back as I stared at the letter, its edges worn from years of hiding. I worked my shifts, poured coffee, smiled at customers, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept thinking about the years I'd spent trying to be enough, for Mom, for Richard, for Elise. I'd been the one who stayed, who showed up, who loved without question. I'd sat through Mom's chemo, held her when she cried, laughed with her over silly hospital jello, and they'd taken it all, left me with nothing but a locket and a lifetime of what-ifs. The diner was my prison, the grease and noise a constant reminder of how small my world had become. I'd see families come in, laughing over burgers, and feel a pang so sharp it stole my breath. When I finally opened the letter, it was late, the diner's grease still clinging to my skin, my hair smelling of fried onions. I sat on my bed, the mattress sagging under me, and unfolded the paper with trembling hands. Mom's handwriting was small and careful, like she'd poured her soul into every word. "Lila," she wrote, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I need you to know the truth." Richard pressured me to rewrite my will when I was too weak to fight back. "I wanted to leave you the house, my savings, everything, but he convinced me you'd be fine, that you were independent." I signed under duress, and I've hated myself for it ever since. There's a copy of my original will in the safe at the library. Find it. It's yours. The library. Mom's old workplace, where she'd spent years cataloging books and helping kids with their homework. The safe was in the back office, a relic nobody used anymore. I sat there, the letter in my hands, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet, but a clarity, sharp and cold. They'd taken everything from me, but they hadn't taken this. The locket around my neck felt heavier, a reminder of Mom's love, and I knew what I had to do. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, the letter beside me, and thought about the years I'd spent invisible. They thought they'd won, that I was too broken to fight back. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. The library smelled of dust and old paper, a scent that wrapped around me like a memory of Mom, pulling me back to evenings spent helping her shelve books. It was a small building, tucked between a hardware store and a laundromat, its windows streaked with years of rain, the paint peeling at the edges. I hadn't been back since Mom's funeral, but I knew every corner. The creaky floorboard by the romance novels, the way the light slanted through the blinds in the afternoon, casting golden stripes across the worn carpet. It was a Saturday, and the place was quiet, just a few kids whispering in the reading nook, their voices soft as pages turning. I nodded at Mrs. Carter, the head librarian, who'd known me since I was a kid, her glasses perched on her nose, her smile warm but tinged with pity. "Lila," she said, her voice soft. "It's been a while." I made small talk, my heart pounding, my palms damp as I clutched my bag. I asked if I could check the back office for something Mom might have left, my voice steadier than I felt. Mrs. Carter didn't hesitate. She trusted me. Always had. The office was cramped, smelling of ink and mildew, the desk piled with paperwork and old coffee mugs. The safe was where Mom said it would be, a squat metal box under the desk, its surface scratched and dull. My hands shook as I dialed the combination. My birthday, a detail that made my throat tighten. The lock clicked, a small, sharp sound, and there it was, a manila envelope with my name scrawled across it in Mom's familiar handwriting. I opened it, my breath catching, the paper rustling in the quiet. Inside was the original will, dated a year before Mom's death, leaving me the house and half her savings. There was a note, too, in Mom's handwriting. "For Lila, my heart. I'm so sorry." My chest tightened, tears burning my eyes. She'd seen me. She'd always seen me. I didn't act right away. I slipped the envelope into my bag, thanked Mrs. Carter, and went back to the diner, the weight of the truth heavy in my chest. My life was still a grind. Long shifts, aching feet, a bank account that never grew. The diner smelled of grease and burnt toast, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and I moved through my tasks on autopilot, pouring coffee, wiping counters, smiling at customers who barely saw me. But the will was a spark, a piece of Mom I could hold on to, a promise she hadn't broken. Richard, Marla, and Elise were living in her house, spending her money, while I scraped by, my apartment a testament to my struggle. Leaky pipes, thin walls, a mattress that sagged in the middle. They thought they'd erased me, but they didn't know about the envelope in my bag, the truth that could unravel everything. I started planning, quiet and careful, like laying out pieces of a puzzle. The will was my proof, but I needed more. I needed them to need me, to feel the weight of their choices. A few weeks later, Elise called, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, the kind she used when she wanted something. "Lila, we're selling the house," she said, her tone light, like she was asking for a favor. "It's a big deal, and we need everyone to sign off. You know, for legal stuff." I almost laughed, the irony sharp and bitter. They needed my signature, because Mom's name was still on the deed, tangled up in some legal mess Richard hadn't bothered to fix. Without me, they couldn't sell, couldn't cash in on what they'd stolen. I played along, said I'd think about it, my voice calm, and hung up, my heart racing. I hired a lawyer, a friend of Mrs. Carter's named Tom, who worked pro bono when he heard my story. He was a quiet man, with kind eyes and a sharp mind, his office small but tidy, smelling of books and lemon polish. He walked me through the process, his voice steady as he explained our case. We filed a claim, presenting the original will and Mom's letter as evidence of coercion. Tom warned me it wouldn't be easy. Richard had money, connections, a lawyer of his own, a slick man in a suit who'd try to twist the truth, but I didn't care. I wasn't doing this for the house or the money. I was doing it for Mom, for the truth, for the girl who'd been erased. The day of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse, the locket around my neck, its weight grounding me like an anchor. The room was cold, the wooden benches hard under me, the air smelling of wax and old paper. Richard was there, his face red, his tie slightly askew, Marla whispering furiously in his ear, her eyes darting to me with a mix of anger and fear. Elise looked small, her shoulders hunched, her eyes flicking to me and away, like she couldn't bear the weight of my gaze. The judge, a woman with gray hair and a no-nonsense voice, read the documents, her expression unreadable, her pen scratching notes. Tom presented our case, calm and precise, laying out the evidence. The letter, the will, the safe's combination, my birthday. A detail that made the judge's eyes soften, just for a moment. Richard's lawyer tried to argue, claiming Mom was in her right mind, that I was just a disgruntled daughter looking for a handout. But the judge wasn't swayed. She asked questions, her voice sharp, cutting through the lies like a blade. When she spoke, her ruling was calm but final. The original will stands. The estate reverts to Lila. The room went still, the air heavy with shock. Marla gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her rings glinting in the light. Richard's shoulders slumped, his face pale, and Elise just stared at the floor, her hands trembling. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The truth had spoken for me, and it was louder than anything I could have shouted. As I left the courthouse, the locket warm against my skin, I felt their eyes on me, but I didn't look back. The air outside was crisp, the sky a clear blue, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The justice was in the truth, in the way it stripped away their lies, exposing them for what they were. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The victory was mine, not because I'd hurt them, but because I'd reclaimed what was mine. Mom's love, her legacy, my place. The house was mine now, but it didn't feel like home. I walked through it a week after the hearing, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors Mom had loved, the sound bouncing off the bare walls. Richard and Marla had packed up in a hurry, their things gone, leaving behind only dust and the faint smell of their expensive perfume. Elise had gone with them, her text to me unanswered, her silence louder than any words. The windows let in a pale, watery light, and the air felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. I ran my fingers along the banister, remembering how Mom used to hum as she polished it, her hand steady and sure, her voice a soft melody that filled the space. This was her place, her heart, but it wasn't mine. Not anymore. I sat on the couch, the same one where Mom and I used to watch old movies, curled up under a blanket with a bowl of popcorn, laughing at the cheesy lines. The fabric was worn now, the cushions sagging, but I could still feel her there, her warmth, her love. I opened the locket, its silver dented but warm in my hand, and looked at her face, frozen in that fairground moment, her eyes bright with joy. I'd spent so long chasing that love, trying to prove I was worthy of it, that I'd forgotten how to love myself. The will, the house, the money, they were hers, but they weren't her. What she'd given me was something deeper, the truth, and the strength to claim it. I sold the house, not out of spite, but because I didn't need it. The decision came quietly, like a sigh, as I stood in the kitchen, the counter still scarred from the time Mom and I tried to make homemade pasta, and laughed until we cried. The money went into a savings account, enough to start over, maybe go back to school, maybe build a life that was mine. I kept the locket and a few of Mom's books, the ones with her notes in the margins, her handwriting looping across the pages like a map of her thoughts. The rest I let go, donating her clothes, her furniture, her dishes to a local shelter. It felt right, like giving her love back to the world. I moved to a small apartment in a new city, a place with wide windows and a view of the river, its surface glinting under the sun. The walls were white, the floor scuffed, but it was mine, and that was enough. I found a job at a community center, organizing after-school programs, helping kids with homework, listening to their stories. They were kids like I'd been, quiet, unsure, searching for a place to belong. Their shy smiles and big dreams reminded me of the girl I used to be, the one who thought she had to earn her place in the world. I wasn't that girl anymore, but I could help them find their way, just as I was finding mine. Richard called once, his voice gruff, asking if we could talk. I said no, politely, my voice steady, and blocked his number. The act as final as closing a door. Elise sent a letter, full of apologies and excuses, her handwriting shaky, but I didn't respond. I didn't hate them. Not anymore. Hate takes too much energy, and I was done giving them pieces of me. The justice I'd found wasn't in their shame or their loss. It was in my freedom, in the quiet certainty that I was enough. They'd built their lives on lies, and now they were facing the consequences. Richard's business was struggling, Marla's social circle shrinking, Elise's future uncertain, her college plans derailed by their financial mess. But that wasn't my story anymore. Sometimes late at night, I'd think about Mom, about the years we'd lost to Richard's shadow. I'd remember the way she'd squeeze my hand when I was scared, her voice soft but sure, her eyes full of love. "You're stronger than you know, Lila," she'd said once, and I believed her now. The locket still hung around my neck, a reminder not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd found, myself. I'd spent so long feeling invisible, but now I saw myself clearly, and that was the real victory, the one that mattered. I stood on my balcony one evening, the river glinting under the setting sun, its surface rippling like a promise. The air was cool, carrying the scent of water and earth, and I closed my eyes, letting it fill me. I wasn't the girl in the lawyer's office anymore, aching for a place that didn't exist. I was Lila, whole and free, and that was more than enough. The truth had set me free. Not because it hurt them, but because it let me see myself. And in that moment, with the river flowing and the locket against my heart, I knew I'd found my way home. I thought about the kids at the community center, the ones who looked at me like I had answers. I didn't have all of them, but I had one. You don't need to be seen by everyone to be enough. You just need to see yourself. That's what Mom gave me in the end. Not a house, not money, but a truth that carried me forward. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold, I smiled, the locket warm against my skin. I was free, and that was the greatest gift of all.